Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm doing a Watt deck profile, and this is a really cool deck that's actually fairly budget to play around with because it's been so reprinted recently, with the Watt Giraffe getting reprinted, which was the only expensive thing in the entire deck, to be honest with you. And it's a really cool stun deck that can attack your opponent directly, that can be a stun or an OTK based deck, which is really cool. So the last thing that your opponent will actually hear when you're playing against this deck though is zzz, and that's it. It's over with. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and let's get straight on this. But before we do, don't forget to check out the Patreon down in the description below, because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you're our patron, along with test hands for the deck as well. So, without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Watt Giraffe. This card can attack your opponent directly, and when it does, it inflicts damage to your opponent. Then you can make it so your opponent cannot activate spell traps or monster effects for the rest of the turn until the end phase of the turn, which is really good for the deck to be able to just shut your opponent down and stop them from doing anything else. Then we're going to be playing the 3 of Watt Cobra, which is the card that you probably recognize the most out of this deck, because this card has actually been teched into a lot of burn decks, because it has the ability that can attack your opponent directly for 1,000 attack, and then when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, then you get to add another copy of Watt Cobra from your deck to your hand. I remember taking this into a burn deck one time, because you could normal summon out a Watt Cobra, attack your opponent for 1,000, and then search for another Watt Cobra, and so basically every turn they were taking 1,000 points of damage, which was really mean, along with the burn cards and the protection effects, which was really mean. But it works. So, then we're going to be playing 2 copies of Watt Pheasant. Watt Pheasant's really cool because when this card attacks your opponent directly, or this card can attack your opponent directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can select a face-up monster on the field and remove it from play until the end phase of this turn. Which is pretty good just to be able to basically get rid of something off the field, especially if you're getting rid of an XYZ monster, to be able to get it off the field to be able to just basically make it so that they lose all the materials is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Watt Kiwi, which I think is the cutest one of them all. Watt monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle while they are attacking, which is alright. It's not the greatest effect, but you're basically just using this as a level 3 tuner monster to go into your Watt Hydra. We then play 2 copies of Watt Fox. What does the fox say? What this card does is, if this card is destroyed by an opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, and your opponent cannot special summon a monster or activate spell traps or monster effects for the rest of the turn, which is really good to be able to just stop your opponent from doing all that, and it essentially shuts them down on their turn, which is really helpful. We then play 3 copies of Mahunder. Mahunder is when she's on the field. Once per turn, you can normal summon a level 4 light monster from your hand, except another copy of Mahunder, which is really good to be able to normal summon out to make a rank 4 play, or to make a synchro play, or whatever you need to do, but it has to be a level 4 monster. We then play 2 copies of Thunder Seahorse. The Thunder Seahorses are really good because you can discard them to add 2 light level 4 Thunder type monsters with the same name with 1,600 or less attack from your deck to your hand, which could be your Watt Cobras, your Watt Giraffes, your Mahunders, or your Pheasants. You can add any of those from your deck to your hand just by discarding a Thunder Seahorse. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the rest of this Watt deck. I just like saying Watt deck. I don't know why. What the hell? We then can play a single copy of Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is really good in this deck because you can OTK your opponent with the copies of Utopia Double and Utopia, which is super pivotal to the deck to be able to get out your copies of Utopia Double. It's super easy to do. If you draw into a level 4 plus Mahunder, or if you draw into a copy of your Thunder Seahorse and a Mahunder, you're essentially going to get your play off. As long as you have 2 level 4 monsters in your hand, which one of them needs to be Mahunder to get 2 monsters on the field, it makes it a lot easier to do. I play a single copy of Recycle Batteries. You get to target 2 Thunder monsters with 1,500 or less attack in your graveyard and add those targets to your hand, which is pretty good to be able to just instantly add 2 of your Thunder monsters back from the graveyard to your hand. We play 3 copies of Pot of Duality, because you're not special summoning every single turn. Sometimes you just normal summon out a copy of your Cobra, attack your opponent directly, and then set a couple of cards and pass, and then go off the next turn. We play 3 copies of Watt Train. Watt Train is amazing. This card is nuts, because it lets you add Watt cards. This card is literally the best card in the deck, and what made me build this deck. What this card does is it lets you add Watt cards with different names from your deck to your hand, except for Watt Train. up to the number of thunder monsters you control with different names. And then during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard to special summon as many Watt monsters as possible with different names from your hand, which is pretty good. You can play Foolish Burial Goods in this deck to be able to get to it even faster. I choose not to play Foolish Burial Goods in this deck because there's other cards that I want to play instead. Because sometimes when I play tested this deck, I feel like I don't hit enough Watt monsters in my hand. When I'm playing around with this deck, I feel like I want to do the big search and then summon them the following turn and OTK my opponent is really the way to go with this deck. We then play for a couple of equip spell cards because I went for an equip spell variant of this deck where you play some equip spells to increase your Watt monster's attack points to be able to really deal with your opponent. I'm playing a single copy of Moon Mirror Shield. Moon Mirror Shield's really cool because it makes it so your Watt monster is always 100 attack higher than the monster attacking it, which is super neat to be able to do. 3 copies of Mage Power, which is insane. This card lets you gain 500 attack points for each spell and trap card you control, which can be all the way up to 3,000, and on equip it gains 500, and then for every spell or trap you control it gains 500, and then 3 copies of United We Stand. These used to be my 2 favorite cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid, and so I just thought it'd be really cool to be able to throw them in. You can actually do something really cool where you can normal summon out your copy of Watt Cobra, equip it with United We Stand and Mage Power, and I've literally gotten just the Watt Cobra over 8,000 and OTK'd my opponent with just Watt Cobra, which was really, really, really mean. But it works. Like, even if you just equip this and this, it's 1,800 automatically. If you have another monster, it's an additional 800, which would be 16 plus 1,000, just with these two on the field, which would be 30. Put your Watt Cobra at 34 or 36, which would be pretty big right off the bat. I mean, they get really big with these on the field. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. I will mention you guys really quickly, if you want to put in 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, you can drop the batteries recycling, and if you want to drop the Moon Mirror Shield, you could drop something like that, or one of the traps that I'm going to show you guys in just a second. So, we're playing a little bit more control variant, where you're trying to control the board too, where you're doing OTK with the equip spells, but you're also controlling them with the traps. So we're playing 2 copies of Quaking Mirror Force. This card is not quite as good now, but it's really, really good to be able to flip your opponent's monsters face down. If you're playing against a deck that is Link monsters, you usually want to trade this out for Storming Mirror Force, but it just depends on what you have. You can play Quaking, you can play Storming, whatever you want. I play 2 copies of Storming too. You can change it out. You can play 2 copies of Blazing Mirror Force and 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. If you're playing against Link monsters, you can side these out for Blazing. It depends on which one you want to do extra damage, so you can attack your opponent and finish them off when they do attack into the inevitable Blazing Mirror Force. The Storming Mirror Force is really good in this deck too because it just bounces monsters off the field. So you have both of these to be able to stop your opponent from attacking into your Watt monsters. We played 2 copies of Lost Wind. This card can be really, really helpful. If you want to play the 2 copies of Foolish Burial, you can drop these 2 out of the deck if you want to, but I like them for the control aspect of the deck. It lets you target a face-up special summon monster on the field and reduce its attack by half, and if the monster is special summoned from the extra deck while this card's in the graveyard, you can set it back to the field, which is pretty good. I feel like this is still a very underrated card that people should be playing and looking at a little bit more. It's really, really good to me. Then we play 3 copies of Call by the Grave, or Call the Haunted. We don't play Call by the Grave in this deck. Call the Haunted is really good because it lets you revive to be able to get out a copy of like Watt Giraffe or Watt Cobra to be able to do a little bit extra damage, which is super nice for going to an XYZ or Link play. It's really cool to be able to use this with Mage Power and United We Stand because essentially you're getting an extra 1,300 attack points on your monster because you're getting 5 off of this and then you're getting 8 off of the United We Stand, which is giving you 1,300 extra on top of whatever it was already gaining because you're getting an extra monster on the field, which is super nice. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So, for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Watt Chimera. Watt Chimera is really good in the deck because what this card does is this card can attack your opponent directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you place a random card from your opponent's hand on top of their deck, which can help you basically lock them in to being able to only draw that one card over and over and over again, which is super cool. 2 copies of Watt Hydra. Watt Hydra is pretty good in the deck too, because this card can attack your opponent directly, and then when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by direct attack, you can choose 1 card from their deck and remove it from play, or choose 1 card in your deck and remove it from play and add it to your hand during the second standby phase after this card's activation. This one's not quite as good to me as the copy of Watt Chimera. I like summoning Chimera more than I like summoning Hydra, but they both have their places in the extra deck. You play a single copy of Black Rose because you can go into Black Rose just a board wipe. It helps out quite a lot to board wipe, then normal summon out a Cobra, and then increase it with a copy of United We Stand and Mage Power to get it quite a big boost. We then play an Access Code Talker package, which is a single copy of Access Code Talker to get you extra pops on the field, Unicorn to be able to spin stuff, Phoenix to be able to pop spells and traps, Cerberus to pop monsters, and then Hippo Shenanigan because everything is light in the main deck, so it's really easy to link into Hippo Shenanigan to be able to go into particular plays and get your Watt monsters that extra 500 boost. 1 copy of Aguska just to be able to shut down, just in case you need to shut down and lock down. 1 copy of number 60. This card's second effect, or this card's third effect is really good because it lets you skip your next battle phase and then double the attack of 1 monster you control until the end phase. Which, it doesn't say original attack, it just says double the attack. So if you have a Watt Cobra that you can get up to 4,000, and then double its attack with the copy of number 60, you can OTK your opponent with 1 attack directly. Copy of Utopia and Utopia Double. This is essentially here because the Utopia Double package goes to 10,000 and helps you OTK your opponent even faster in the deck because you overlay into Utopia Double, detach a material, add double or nothing from deck to hand, and then you overlay the Utopia on top of the Utopia Double, and then attack your opponent, detach a material from the Utopia, and then drop double or nothing and attack again and be able to OTK your opponent because this negates attacks on its detach, which is pretty good. And then a single copy of Gaga Cowboy. I'm really falling in love with Gaga Cowboy in this deck because you can detach a material from it and inflict 800 points of damage to your opponent. So you can essentially Cowboy for game your opponent, which is pretty cool, especially if you have, like, if you summon Maw Hunter and a copy of your, say, for instance, Cobra onto your side of the field, you attack your opponent for 1,000 and then go for Gaga Cowboy in time to be able to stop your opponent. Because sometimes with this deck, you will go into time, which is pretty interesting. You would imagine this deck would work really fast, but sometimes with the mirror forces and stuff, if you're not OTKing your opponent really quickly with the United We Stands, Mage Powers, and Moon Mirror Shield, you kind of run into problems, and you have the copy of Gaga Cowboy to kind of outlast your opponent. That's why you play the mirror forces as well. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. It's very budget. It's very rogue. And it's really fun. I wish they would give this deck a little bit more support to make it just that much better, but it's a super fun deck to play around with. And it can be played a lot of different ways where you can go for stun aspects of the deck, you can go for OTKs like me, or you can play it where you're just trying to attack your opponent directly, like I've played this particular build. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely tell what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, and check out the Patreon for more deck profiles, and see you guys on the next one. See you later, guys.